Hey there, welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to reporters and writers and editors and journalists and all different people who are putting things out from a news perspective. We also talk to artists and writers and people who put out books. And I say that advisedly because in our second segment, we have a Bronxite who has written a very interesting and dynamic collection of short stories. But we're going to get started with a young, bright, new journalist in the Bronx. He writes for the Mott Haven Herald, and I got a chance to meet him recently, and I'm thrilled that Jimmie Mckinney has joined us. Nice to see you, Jimmie.
Nice to see you, Gary. Thank you for having me.
Let just a little background. Let's introduce you to the people of the Bronx, where you're from, what interests you in journalism. Just tell us a little bit about what you've been doing.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm from Wilmington, North Carolina, born and raised there in the South. I came up here about a year ago to go to grad school. I'm at the CUNY Craig Newmark School of Journalism. And yeah, I was attracted to journalism because I'm a photographer. I did a lot of photojournalism. And prior to that, I did a lot of like art, photo art. And I was spending a lot of time making projects that I felt were introspective, and I wanted to tell real stories and use, the gifts that are the expertise I have with photo to be able
Uh,
to.
and then kind of expanded. Now that is very. I wasn't aware of that, and that's very interesting to me because I will tell you, and I haven't evaluated your photo work, but you're a good writer. Obviously, we've seen a lot of young writers in the Bronx, and you're right up there. I'd be curious to know, coming from Wilmington, North Carolina, what is it like coming to the borough of the Bronx? Like you said, you want to, tell stories about real life.
Yeah.
We got it. We it.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what it's been like to cover the borough of the Bronx.
It's been very exciting. One of the biggest things I realized about the Bronx is how much more organized it is, especially from a place where I'm coming from, where
Wow.
a lot of people and places are family oriented. You don't see much of non-related community, and so in the Bronx, to see people who are like very heavily invested in their community and want to see it better, and want to hold people accountable.
Wow.
They're doing a lot of work there in the Bronx, and that's something
Wow.
I'm used to
That
seeing.
that that's very interesting, and I love talking to people who come from other places because it gives us a fresh look at ourselves. And of course, we talk about this on BronxNet and on these programs all the time. The fact that the people of the Bronx is like they ain't doing it for us; we're going to do it ourselves, and
Hmm.
we've had it. That's kind of like the attitude. Anyway, so let's get right to what you're writing about. Cannabis is coming. You did a very, very good investigative and thorough, informative story about the Cannabis Hub. I don't think people of the Bronx know what it is. What is the Cannabis Hub? And just tell us all about the things that you have written.
Yeah, and so the Bronx Cannabis Hub is it's supposed to right now. It's a virtual online center, and it's a place where those who are may have been priorly like convicted of a marijuana offense can then go and get the necessary resources, legal know-how, and just everything that they feel like they need so they can enter into the market once it's up and running. Come next year is what the Office of
Well,
Cannabis.
one of the agendas, which was stated by the governor and the mayor and others who are moving this forward from a legislative point of view, is that they wanted to do just that and make sure that people who had been abused by the system or had difficulties with the system through being busted for pot and everything else, that they get a chance to benefit from it. And I just know from interviews I've done, legislators in the Bronx are very serious about that. I mean,
Yeah.
in other words, they're saying we're really going to do it. This would seem to me to be an example of that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, they're trying to move with social equity definitely in mind. They want to make sure those who have been, the most impacted by over policing for cannabis, have a chance to have an opportunity at some form of generational wealth.
There's people with, I think, good reason jumping up and down and talking about tax benefits and talking about economic benefits and helping people make businesses and everything else. I don't hear a lot of talk about people, let's say, concerned about kids who have access, and I'm not talking about young kids, which is another issue, but teenagers going in. I'm sure we're going to get incidents of them going into school unable to really perform in school. Do you hear any of that undercurrent, or right now the dialogue is how to launch this thing and how to make it economically viable, and those kind of concerns, have not come to the fore yet?
Well, the system's going to be handled, much how alcohol is handled. You have to be 21 to have adult use cannabis, and so there shouldn't really be much of a situation where teens are involved. They're working in a way where they're making sure that it's enforced.
One of the things I was thinking about is New York, in some things, does a very good job at putting in systems. And if we're going to put it much like, whereas in other places in the country, maybe in North Carolina, they're a little more careless about some of these things. They don't have the governmental infrastructure to, run a subway system, for example, that kind of thing. Anyway, let's talk about something else. You wrote an interesting story about the St. Mary's Park. This
Yeah,
all comes out of the Mott Haven Herald, by the way. And St. Mary's Park, like some other parks, being renovated. But I think there was frustration about, number one, that it's closed in the summer. Sometimes you can't help that. But number two, that the community didn't know it. So there was no
yeah.
chance to prepare. Tell me a little bit about our wonderful St. Mary's Park down in the South Bronx.
Yeah. So the St. Mary's Park Rec Center is being renovated, and the community felt like they didn't actually get any notice on that, and so then you had a lot of kids, around a couple hundred kids, who rely on that rec center for summer programming, so they'll have something to do during the summer, so they stay off the streets. And so they closed down the rec center without giving much of a notice. And since then, the park has, they put the needle boxes in the park. And then they've also been like recent crime in the park, and so it's not really a safe area for people to want to have their kids there during the summer.
So
Um,
Well, let me just interject and frame what you're saying. So, what could have been done is to go ahead of time, talk to community groups in the area and say, look, we're going to have an issue here because we're closing down a rec center. Is there other programs? Put a sign up on the door and say, beginning whatever it is, August 1st, you can go for programs in other places. And then, of course, have NYPD and others consult on how they want to set it up so they don't create more problems.
Yeah, essentially. And so now there isn't really any programming for the kids in the park. And even if there was, many families, many parents don't even feel like the park is that safe to have your kids in there.
Right. You see, this is not good. And if you don't have to editorialize. I'll do it for you. We can't have this. Right now with COVID and the kids have been cooped up, and they need places to go. And especially in the very hot summertime, you want them outdoors doing healthful, productive activities. And just creating this creates a cauldron. And the next thing you're going to see, crime is going to go up, and they're going to say, "What's wrong?" With our community. It's terrible. Do we hear of any result yet, or at this point it's just going and there's nobody helping out?
At this point, it's just going. I mean, the rec center is still closed, and there isn't really much programming going on in the park. Is what it is.
All right. Well, I was going to say to you, Jimmie, welcome to the Bronx. Now,
Yeah,
you get an education as well as anything else for all the nice things that you said about communities fighting for themselves. Now you see why they fight for themselves.
yeah,
Stuff happens like this, which just makes no sense. We have the infrastructure to do it. Anyway, that's just me and my attitude. Anyway, the last thing I want to bring up that you did write about, which we have done a lot of work on, is the redistricting. You focused on changes to Port Morris, Longwood, and those areas down there. Is there acceptance? Is your ear to the ground, and you say there is acceptance for some of these changes that could be coming? Now, realize this was a draft, and there could be a further input. But what's your sense on that?
yeah. My sense is that there's been acceptance to the changes, although there has been a talk about engagement from the Bronx. They want more people living in the South Bronx to come and voice their opinions on what's going on and whether or not they like the maps or not. And so right now we're in the area where maybe we don't have as much engagement as we'd want, or as they'd want. But the changes to the Bronx, they've since stripped Port Morris, or a section of Port Morris, and added it to the section where Mott Haven is. So that's Section 8.
So
Um,
that, Council District 8, just to be clear, it would move it, I guess, from Rafael Salamanca's district and put it in Councilmember Ayala's district. The only issue there is, are you splitting up cohesive communities and moving some people with things in common to somebody else's district? That's that's the issue.
yeah, yeah. I honestly see it more of as a consolidation. I think Mott Haven is now formed in a collection with Port Morris in a way that does bring the
That
community
makes sense.
together.
You just editorially, you like the idea. You think that it will help. What we're going to do, we'll put the information up on the screen so that people will be able to know how they can have input, et cetera, et cetera. So, all right. So now we'll get to the part where I ask you, so what are you working on? What's coming up?
Yeah.
What's next? Let's get the inside. We got about a minute left. What's going on down in Mott Haven that we should know about?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I'm working on right now is on a story about evictions post moratorium. Since the eviction moratorium has ended, there's an expectation there's going to be a lot of eviction filings coming up, and a lot of maybe warrants going out as well. And so it's a hotbed issue. It's very important to the South Bronx with their high numbers of.
Oh my goodness! Do you have a sense yet of the numbers? The latest numbers I heard were something like 300, whereas and this is unofficial. I'm just remembering what somebody told me. Whereas, like a year ago or a couple of years ago at this time, it was 80. So that begins to be a lot.
Actually, at the moment, from the beginning of the year to July 25th, there's been over 17,000 filings.
Oh, 17,000. So here I am talking
Yeah.
about 380. Ignore what I just said.
Yeah. There's
17,000 filings.
Yeah.
Now, this is what, listen, this is a whole other show, but this is what drives me nuts, is that then people will complain about homelessness and homeless people in their neighborhoods and whatever else, but you're getting 17,000 families. Now, realize that's not individuals, that's families, potentially, who are being evicted. What are you going to do about this? This is obviously a really big problem. Well, Jimmie Mckinney, now people can find your stuff in the Mott Haven Herald, and then also the Hunts Point Express, because sometimes I know they share stuff, right?
Yeah. You can find it on Mott Haven Herald and on the Hunts Point.
And the Hunts Point Express. And so, where are you in your education? You almost done?
Yeah, I'm almost done. I graduate this December. So
wow.
More months.
Are you going to stay here?
I'm gonna try to.
Oh yeah, oh good. I know that can be a
Well,
sensitive topic. You're free to do whatever you like and get a good job. I mean, but you're obviously interested, and I think your work has been great. And I'm thrilled that we got a chance to chat with you on the Bronx Buzz.
Me too. It was great, Gary.
Great. Jimmie, let's stay in touch. I mean, this is one thing that people don't know. When you put media together and they work together, you also get better results for your community. And that's one of the things we're trying to do in the Bronx Buzz. So that's it. We're going to take a very short break. And then when we come back, we're going to meet Anna Ortiz, who wrote, here it is, I got it right here, a book of short stories, Los Cuentitos. We'll be right back.